The first time my dentist asked if I'd been grinding my teeth in my sleep, I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was insulting. Grinding. Like I was a cartoon stress case, clenching my jaw over office emails and traffic lights. Like my body was throwing a tantrum I hadn't noticed. I told him no. I told him I slept fine. I told him I didn't wake up in pain. He didn't argue. He just turned the monitor toward me and zoomed in on my X-ray, like he was showing me a crime scene. Hairline cracks spiderwebbed across 2 molars. The roots looked bruised. The bone around them had a faint shadow to it, like pressure had been pressing from the inside. For so long, it had changed the architecture. "That's not normal wear," he said quietly. "That's force." I tried to make a joke, something about being built different, something about being too stubborn to break. He didn't smile. He leaned back in his chair and watched my mouth the way you watch a door that won't stop rattling in a storm. "Any headaches?" "Sometimes." "Jaw pain?" "I guess, not bad." "Metallic taste in the mornings?" I paused, just a second too long. His eyes softened. That was worse than judgment. Sympathy always feels like a verdict. He took off his gloves, folded his hands, and said the line that changed my life. "There's a place." I waited for the punchline. He didn't give it. "It's not a hospital," he added. "Not a clinic, not in the system. I'm not supposed to recommend it, and I'm not going to write it down. If you ask me again next week, I'll deny I ever said anything." My throat tightened in a way that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with relief. Because when you've been carrying pressure for long enough, you start to mistake any secret doorway for salvation. "What place?" I asked. He opened a drawer and slid out a blank business card. No logo, no name, just an address, written in a neat, deliberate hand, and a time window. After dusk. "This is for people who hold it," he said. "People who keep it in until the body has nowhere left to put it." "What's it?" His mouth twitched like he almost said something too honest. "Pressure," he repeated. "The kind that turns teeth into glass." I stared at the card. The address was local, but wrong in the way some places are wrong, like they exist in the gaps between maps. "And they can fix it?" I asked. He didn't say yes. He didn't say no. He said, "If you go, don't bite down when it starts." "It?" His gaze dropped to my jaw. Not my eyes, my jaw. "You'll know." I left with my mouth feeling heavier than when I walked in. That night I woke up with my teeth locked so hard together, I thought I'd broken something. The pain didn't bloom like an injury. It pulsed like a warning. My tongue tasted metal. When I spat into the sink, the foam wasn't red. It wasn't brown. It was a thin, faintly violet string that disappeared the moment the water hit it, like it didn't want to be seen. I tried to ignore it. That's what you do. You keep working, keep smiling, keep clenching. You keep the pressure where it belongs, behind your teeth, behind your words, behind your eyes. 2 days later, I bit into a piece of toast and heard a tiny, delicate crack inside my head. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was intimate, like a whisper inside bone. I stopped chewing and just sat there, holding bread in my mouth, terrified to close my teeth again. That night, I drove to the address on the blank card. It was out past the streetlights, where the roads start naming themselves after trees and the houses pull back from the curb like they're trying not to be involved. I expected a clinic tucked behind a hedge, a rich person's private office, an old dentist with a basement and unmarked tools. What I found was a mansion. Not a modern mansion, not glass and steel, something older. A huge, dead-looking structure squatting behind iron fencing, its stonework dark with weather, its windows tall and blind. The driveway was long and curved, disappearing between trees that leaned inward like they were listening. I turned off my headlights and just sat there with my hands on the wheel, staring at it. It didn't feel abandoned. It felt aware. There were no porch lights, no security cameras, no signage. Just the black mouth of the entrance and the sense that if I walked up those steps, something inside would adjust itself to fit me. I almost left. I almost started the car and drove back to my ordinary life of clenched smiles and quiet headaches. Then my jaw spasmed so hard, my eyes watered. That did it. Pain is a better persuader than fear. I got out of the car and walked up the driveway with my teeth held apart by sheer will. The front door was already open. Not wide, not welcoming, just cracked enough to make a thin wedge of darkness, like someone had breathed it open from the inside. I hesitated on the threshold. The air that spilled out wasn't cold. It was damp, warm in the wrong way. The way it feels when you put your face too close to a dog's mouth and smell the wet heat of its breath. Something in me recoiled. Something in me stepped forward anyway. I pushed the door open. The foyer was enormous. A chandelier hung overhead like a fossilized spiderweb. The floor was polished stone, too clean, reflecting the dark ceiling. The place smelled faintly of antiseptic and old wood and something sweeter underneath it, like rot dressed up as perfume. I took one step inside and the door clicked shut behind me, not as a lock, but as a decision. My first thought was that I should call out, ask if anyone was here. Before I could, footsteps came from the hallway to my left, soft, unhurried. The sound of someone who wasn't afraid of what lived in the corners. A woman appeared, mid-40s maybe, dressed like she'd just come from a dinner party that had gone on too long. Her hair was neatly pinned. Her posture was effortless. She looked at me with the casual recognition of someone seeing an old co-worker at the shops. "You made it," she said. I blinked. Do I know you?" Her smile didn't falter. Not yet. It should have been a joke. It didn't land like one. She stepped closer. Her eyes flicked down to my mouth like that was where my name was written. "It started," she said softly. "I can see it." My throat tightened. "Started what?" I was told you could help." "We can," she said. "We do." She turned and gestured down the hall. "Come, you don't want to stand in the entry too long. It feels worse there." "How do you know?" I asked before I could stop myself. She looked back at me like I'd asked why water was wet. "Because it always does," she said. I followed her. The mansion's hallways were wider than they should have been. The walls were lined with old portraits, faces turned slightly away, like they didn't want to look directly at whatever walked these corridors now. The carpets were thick. The air grew warmer the deeper we went, and with the warmth came that sweet undertone again. Not the smell of decay, but the smell of something that wanted to be eaten. We passed doorways. I saw glimpses of rooms lit by lamps. In one, a man sat in an armchair with a towel pressed to his mouth, staring straight ahead like he was watching something happening behind his eyes. In another, a teenage girl stood over a sink, hands braced on porcelain, shoulders shaking in small, controlled movements that didn't look like sobbing. It looked like swallowing. No one looked surprised to see me. That was the worst part. The way their gazes slid over me with familiarity, not curiosity. Like I was late to something we'd all agreed on. The woman led me into a bathroom. It was beautiful in the way old wealth is beautiful. Marble, brass, mirrors framed in carved wood. A long vanity with multiple sinks, like a place designed for a crowd to wash away the same kind of mess. "You can use anyone," she said, like she was offering me a seat. I stepped closer to the mirror. My mouth looked normal. For a second I felt stupid, like I'd driven out here because of stress and superstition. Then I opened wider. My gums were swollen in a way I hadn't noticed before. Along the gum line, right where tooth met flesh, there was a faint bruise-color halo. Purple, not dark like blood. Bright, almost luminous, like ink. I pressed my fingertip to my gum above my front teeth. Pain flared and then receded, leaving behind a wet warmth. When I pulled my finger away, it was smeared with a thin violet sheen. I stared at it, heart thumping. "What is that?" I whispered. The woman's voice came from behind me, gentle, as if speaking to a child. "It's what you've been holding." I swallowed. My throat clicked. I did not grind my teeth. I remembered the dentist's warning. Don't bite down when it starts. But the pressure behind my front teeth surged anyway, like something swelling, pushing outward. My teeth began to ache. It wasn't a normal ache. It wasn't nerve pain. It was the feeling of something inside them becoming too big for the space it was given. I leaned closer to the mirror and pulled my lip up. The roots of my front teeth looked wrong. The teeth themselves had a faint translucence to them now, like porcelain thinned too far. At the base, the purple was darker, gathered in pockets. I ran my tongue along the back of my teeth and felt texture that shouldn't be there. Tiny holes, not cavities, not decay, like pinpricks bored clean through enamel. I stepped back, panic crawling up my spine. "I need a dentist," I said automatically. This is rotting." "It's not rot," the woman corrected, still calm. "Rot is random. This is deliberate." I turned to her. "Deliberate by who?" She didn't answer. She reached into a drawer and handed me a folded towel. "Hold that," she said. "You'll need it." "I don't..." The pressure surged again, harder. I grabbed the towel and pressed it to my mouth without thinking. A thin stream of purple fluid spilled between my lips and soaked into the fabric. I froze. It wasn't blood. It didn't smell metallic. It smelled faintly sweet, like crushed berries left out too long. My stomach lurched. I pulled the towel away and stared at the stain. Violet. Bright. Alive. My front teeth throbbed. I could feel them loosening, not from the gum line, but from something deeper, as if the bone itself was letting go. The woman stepped closer. "Don't bite," she reminded me. "Don't test them." "I'm not..." My jaw clenched reflexively, a tiny grind of teeth against teeth. Less than a second. A sharp crack shot through my skull like lightning. I screamed, not loud, but raw. The pain was immediate and absolute. My front teeth didn't just hurt. They fractured. I felt it splintering outward like glass under pressure. My mouth filled with hard shards. I spat into the sink and watched pieces of my own tooth tumble into porcelain like broken ceramic. The purple fluid followed them, slicking them, coating them. I gripped the counter, breathing hard through my nose. Tears blurred my vision. The woman didn't flinch. She didn't look horrified. She looked disappointed. "That's why we tell you," she said softly. "You've made it harder." I choked on my own saliva. Harder for who? Her eyes lifted, meeting mine in the mirror. For you, she said. For the house. I looked back at my reflection. My front teeth were ruined, the edges jagged, uneven. Behind them, my gums bulged, as if something was swelling up to replace what I'd broken. And further back, I saw something that made my breath stop. My lower molars, the back teeth, were taller than they should have been. Not long like fangs. Tall, like columns rising. The enamel was riddled with holes, dozens of them, like a honeycomb. Through the holes I could see the dark pink of inner gum and the faint violet glimmer beneath it, like a light trapped under skin. Those teeth weren't decaying. They were being hollowed out. I shook my head, dizzy. This isn't possible. It's happening, the woman said. Possible doesn't matter. What do? I whispered. Her answer was quiet, almost tender. You let it go where it wants to go. I stared at the sink, at the drain. The drain was open. Ordinary, a simple circle of dark metal. And yet the longer I looked at it, the more it seemed less like a hole and more like an eye. The air above it shimmered with heat. My mouth pulsed again, filling with that sweet, violet fluid. It gathered under my tongue, thickening. I leaned over the sink and spat. The stream poured out in a disgusting steady line. It hit porcelain, swirled, and then slid toward the drain like it was eager. I watched it disappear. A wave of relief washed through my jaw the moment it went down. Immediate, chemical, like a pressure valve opening. I sucked in a breath, stunned. The woman nodded as if confirming a theory. See? She said. It eases when you feed it. I looked up sharply. Feed it? She didn't correct herself. That was its own answer. More footsteps sounded outside the bathroom, and a man stepped in. Older, gray hair, wearing a simple shirt rolled at the sleeves. His expression was almost kind. He looked at the stained towel in my hands and the purple slick on my lips. New? He asked the woman. Yes, she said. The man stepped closer, peering at my mouth with professional interest. Front went first, he murmured. They always do if you've got a lot unsaid. I tried to speak. My tongue stuck. Purple fluid leaked out again, as if my mouth didn't belong to me anymore. The man offered me another towel. Don't be proud, he said. Pride is what gets you shattered. What is this place? I managed, voice thick, lisping around broken teeth. He smiled, not happily, patiently. It's where the pressure goes, he said. Where else could it go? Outside, I said weakly. Home, a hospital. He shook his head, almost pitying. Outside, it has nowhere to drain. That's why you've been cracking. Out there, you hold it, and hold it until bone breaks. In here, the house takes it. It gives you space. Space? I repeated, tasting the word like a lie. The woman stepped around me and rinsed the sink with water. The water carried the purple toward the drain, and the relief in my jaw came again, like a reward. She watched my face react and said softly, Don't worry. That feeling is the only kindness you'll get. I stared at the drain. My heart hammered. You're acting like this is normal, I said. The man shrugged. Normal is what happens all the time, he replied. This happens all the time. He pointed gently toward the hallway. You'll want a room. The first night is messy. I want to leave, I blurted. The man's eyes flicked upward, not toward the door, but toward the ceiling. You can, he said. My stomach dropped. Then why do you say it like that? He hesitated just long enough to let me feel hope, and then he killed it. Because you won't make it far, he said. I swallowed, throat clicking again. The woman stepped closer. "Leaving doesn't stop the process," she said. "It accelerates it." "That's not—" "It is," she said. "The house isn't doing this to you. It's letting it out. If you leave, it stays trapped. It has nowhere to go but forward, into cracks, into the jaw, into bone." I felt the pressure behind my molars surge as if agreeing. The man's voice softened. "You came here because the pressure was already winning. Don't pretend you were fine outside." I hated that he was right. I hated the relief that came every time I fed the drain. I hated that my body responded to this place like it had been designed for it. They guided me to a room on the second floor. The bed was made neatly. A towel was folded on the pillow like a hotel. A glass of water sat on the bedside table. There was a sink in the corner. Of course there was. I tried the window. It opened. The night air was cold, real. I could see my car in the driveway, a dark shape among darker trees. Freedom was right there. I climbed halfway out, hands gripping the frame. The moment my head crossed the threshold of the window, my jaw spasmed so hard, my vision flashed white. The pressure behind my teeth surged like an explosion. I gagged. Purple. Fluid flooded my mouth so fast I choked on it. I stumbled back into the room, coughing, spitting into my hands. The pain eased the instant my feet hit the floor again. I stared at the open window, shaking. The house hadn't locked me in. It had simply taught my body where relief lived. I slammed the window shut. I didn't sleep. Not really. I lay on the bed with the towel under my chin and stared at the ceiling while my mouth did things no mouth should do. My teeth shifted. I could feel it. Not in the normal way teeth feel loose when you wiggle them. They were changing shape, expanding, thinning, stretching under pressure like heated plastic. At one point, I sat up and went to the mirror again, unable to stop myself. My front teeth, what was left of them, had widened, flattened. They looked too thin, too broad, like someone had taken normal teeth and pulled them outward like dough. The gum above them bulged purple-black, swollen with fluid. I touched one gently and it moved. A calm wave of nausea rolled through me. I did not grind. I kept my jaw slack, lips parted. I breathed like I was trying not to wake something. The tooth moved again on its own, as if it was being pushed out from the root. I grabbed the towel, pressed it under my mouth, and waited. The pressure built, and then, with a wet, horrible ease, the tooth slid out. It didn't break. It didn't crack. It came out whole. It was too big. It was long and wide, like a pale slab. It took up the entire space of my upper gum where several teeth should have been. When it cleared my lips, purple fluid poured out behind it like oil behind a pulled plug. I stared at the tooth in my hand, trembling. The root was stained violet. The base glimmered with that unnatural purple like it was alive. My mouth filled again, and I spat into the towel, then into the sink. The sink drank it. The relief hit like a drug. I gripped the porcelain with both hands, breathing hard, and then I heard it. Not a voice. A sound from the pipes. A slow, wet swallowing. The plumbing should not sound like that. I froze, mouth dripping purple. The swallowing came again, patient, deep. The house wasn't draining. It was feeding. The next morning, someone knocked and entered without waiting. It was the man from the bathroom. He carried a tray with soft food I couldn't eat. "You did it," he said, looking at the purple stains on the towel and the smear around the drain. I stared at him. "What is the purple?" He set the tray down. "It's what you compress," he said. All those nights you clenched your jaw and swallowed your words. That pressure doesn't disappear. It condenses. It changes. It becomes palatable. To what? I demanded, voice broken. He looked at me like I was asking the wrong question. To this place, he said, to what's under it. I felt cold spread through my chest. There's something under the house. He nodded once, like acknowledging weather. What is it? He hesitated. Then he said, You'll hear it if you listen when the pipes drink. My pulse hammered in my ears. Is it a person? He shrugged. It eats like an animal, he said, but it was built around like a god. Built around, I whispered. He leaned closer, lowering his voice even though we were alone. The mansion didn't exist first, he said. The appetite did. I couldn't stop staring at the sink. I tried to leave again that day. I made it to the foyer. The door was there, massive, heavy, unlocked. I put my hand on the handle. My jaw exploded with pressure. Not pain, pressure so intense it felt like my skull was being inflated. My teeth vibrated. The holes in my molars felt like tiny mouths opening wider. Purple fluid flooded my throat. I gagged, choking on it. I stumbled to the side and retched into a decorative bowl on a table. The bowl filled with violet. The air shivered. Somewhere deep in the mansion's body, pipes gurgled. The relief hit. It wasn't subtle anymore. It was a wave rolling through my jaw like a reward for obedience. I dropped to my knees, shaking. The door remained open the entire time. I crawled back into the hallway and didn't try again. Days blurred. Or maybe it was one long day stretched thin. The mansion had no clocks. The light never seemed to change properly. Sometimes it was morning in the windows and night in the hallways. My teeth continued to change. The back molars grew taller, riddled with holes, honeycombed. The front teeth stretched and thinned until they looked like pale plates. Sometimes they loosened and slid out whole. Sometimes they cracked despite my efforts, and I had to dig shards out of my gums with shaking fingers. Every time I bled purple, the house eased. Every time I resisted, the pressure surged. I learned quickly. Compliance didn't stop the horror. It just made it smoother. Other people drifted through the halls like staff, like residents, like survivors. Some had mouths that looked wrong, gums flattened, teeth missing, lips scarred. Some spoke with a wet lisp. Some didn't speak at all. They communicated with nods and gestures and those soft, sympathetic eyes. One woman, not the first one, another, handed me a towel one evening while I stood over a sink, drooling violet. "Don't be ashamed," she murmured. "Everyone thinks it's shame. It isn't." "What is it?" I whispered. She pressed her palm to her own jaw, thoughtful. "It's hunger," she said. "Not yours. It's." I stared at her. "Why do you stay?" Her smile was small and empty. "Because out there, you grind yourself to dust and nobody thanks you," she said. "In here, at least it takes what it wants and leaves you quiet." I didn't know if that was comfort or a warning. The first time I followed the pipes, it wasn't bravery. It was curiosity made desperate by suffering. I was in one of the second-floor bathrooms when the sinking sound came again, that slow swallowing through the drain. I leaned close and listened. There was a rhythm to it, like breathing, like a giant body working. I felt it then, the slightest vibration under the tile, not from plumbing, from something moving far below, something huge shifting. I left the bathroom and walked down the hall. The mansion's layout shifted subtly the more you wandered. Corridors seemed longer, doorways appeared where there hadn't been any, stairs that should lead up led down. The house guided you the way a throat guides food. I descended. The air grew warmer, damp, sweet with that rotting fruit undertone. The walls felt closer, as if the house was tightening around me. The carpets gave way to bare stone. The lamps became fewer, their light dimmer, yellowed. I passed a room where several people sat in silence, towels in their laps, heads bowed. Ichuzao, communal sink in the corner, was stained with violet. Above it, the mirror was cloudy, like breath permanently fogged it. No one looked up as I passed. They didn't stop me. They didn't warn me. That was how I knew the house wanted me to keep going. At the bottom of the last staircase, there was a door. Not locked, not barred. Just heavy, damp wood with iron hinges that looked older than the mansion itself. A low sound seeped through it. Not a growl, a swallow. My hand trembled on the handle. When I opened the door, warm air hit my face like breath. Inside was a basement corridor. The ceiling was lower here. The walls sweated. Pipes ran along the stone in bundles, converging in the same direction like veins toward a heart. Each pipe was stained faint violet along its seams. They pulsed, not constantly, but enough that I noticed a subtle flex, like something drawing in. I followed them. The corridor opened into a large chamber. For a second, my brain refused to understand what I was seeing because the shape was wrong, too big, too organic. In the center of the room was a cistern, a circular pit lined with stone. The pipes all emptied into it, dozens of them, pouring slow streams of violet fluid into the darkness below. The sound was constant here, wet, rhythmic, swallowing. I stepped closer, knees weak. The stone around the cistern was slick, stained purple in long drips and handprints. Towels lay abandoned. Teeth lay there too, not piles of teeth like a normal nightmare. Teeth that didn't make sense. Wide, thin plates, tall honeycombed columns, pale slabs with violet roots, shapes that looked like architecture more than anatomy. Offerings. My stomach turned. I looked into the cistern. Something moved far below. Not a clear body, not a neat monster. A mass suspended in shadow. A slow, immense shifting, like a giant stomach turning. A glimmer of wet surface caught lamplight and vanished again. Then a pipe released a stronger flow of violet, and the thing below responded. It rose, not fully, just enough for me to see the edge of it. A slick curve like the inside of a mouth, lined not with teeth but with ridges, like gills, opening and closing. The violet poured onto it and disappeared. The swallowing sound deepened, pleased. I staggered back, bile rising. The house wasn't a building. It was a feeding mechanism. The mansion was the throat. The pipes were the veins. The sinks were mouths. And the thing in the cistern, the appetite, was the stomach. I covered my own mouth instinctively. My gums pulsed. Purple leaked between my fingers, as if the house heard my fear and reminded me what I was for. Behind me, soft footsteps. I turned and saw the first woman from the foyer standing in the doorway, hands folded, expression calm. "You found it," she said. "What is it?" I hissed. She looked past me into the cistern with something like reverence. "It's the reason this place exists," she said. "The reason anyone ever comes here." "Why?" My voice cracked. "Why feed it?" Her gaze returned to me, gentle and cold. "Because it feeds us back," she said. I stared at her, confused. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Not with flesh, Not with health. With quiet, she said. It takes what's been compressing inside you and gives you space where it used to be. That relief you feel, that isn't mercy. That's the house rewarding you for becoming compatible. My throat tightened. Compatible with what? She smiled faintly. With being empty, she said. The swallowing below us continued. The pipes pulsed. The air tasted sweet and wet. I backed away from the cistern. I'm leaving, I whispered. She didn't stop me. She didn't have to. As I turned, pressure detonated behind my molars so violently I saw sparks. I doubled over, gagging, violet flooding my mouth, pouring between my lips in thick ropes. I fell to my knees on the slick stone and retched purple onto the floor. The pipes nearest me quivered as if sensing it. A thin rivulet of violet began to creep toward a drain in the stone. I watched it move like a living thing. The relief hit again, stronger than ever, and my body betrayed me with a moan. The woman crouched beside me and gently tucked the towel under my chin like a mother tending a sick child. That's why you can't leave, she murmured. The house has already mapped your pressure. Outside, there's nowhere for it to go. It will fill you until you shatter. In here, it drains. In here, it drinks. I shook, helpless, drooling violet. I don't want this, I rasped. She stroked my hair once, not unkind. No one does, she said. That's why it works. I don't know how long I stayed in that basement. Time in the mansion isn't like time outside. It loops. It stretches. It softens at the edges. I remember crawling back up the stairs, with my mouth hanging open, purple still leaking in slow oozes. I remember passing residents who didn't look at me anymore, because now I looked like them. I remember the sink in my room, the way I leaned over it like a prayer. After a while, you stop asking when it will end, because you realize the question is wrong. It isn't ending, it's completing. The teeth keep changing. They become less like teeth and more like channels. More holes, more hollows, less structure. The purple flows easier, thicker, like syrup. And the house responds. Sometimes I wake with my cheek pressed to the cool porcelain of the sink because I fell asleep mid-drain, chasing that relief like a starving man. Sometimes I swear I feel the walls flex when I spill enough, a subtle tightening, a satisfied swallow in the pipes, a warmth in the air that feels like approval. Once, late or early, I went back to the foyer and stood before the front door again. It was still unlocked. I opened it. Cold night air hit my face. I could see the driveway, the trees, the world outside that still pretended to be ordinary. For one moment, I thought I could do it. I thought I could run to my car, slam the door, drive until the mansion was a bad dream behind me. Then the pressure surged, not a spike, a tidal wave. My gums throbbed, swelled, and suddenly something huge shifted behind my upper front teeth. A plate of tooth, thin and wide and impossibly long, began to slide forward. I felt it loosening like a big knife being pulled from a sheath. Purple fluid poured into my mouth so fast I choked. It filled my throat, my sinuses, my lungs. I coughed, and the fluid sprayed onto the threshold, violet splattering the stone like paint. The house inhaled. I heard it clearly then. Not plumbing, not echo. A wet draw from inside the walls. The purple on the threshold trembled and began to seep inward, toward the baseboards, toward unseen drains. The relief that followed was immediate and violent, and my knees buckled. I collapsed inside the mansion with my forehead on the floor, sobbing silently, drooling purple, while the open door let cold air spill over my back like mockery. No one came to close the door. The house didn't care if it was open. It knew I wouldn't cross it. A few nights after that, I heard someone arriving. Headlights sweeping the foyer through the tall windows. Footsteps on gravel. A hesitant knock. The front door opened itself, that small crack of darkness widening like a mouth parting. Voices drifted in. A man's voice, strained and hopeful. "Hello? I was told there's help here." The woman's voice answered, calm, familiar. "You made it," she said. I stood at the top of the stairs, towel in my hand, mouth aching, teeth reshaping slowly, purple gathering at my gum line like dew. For a second, I thought about warning him, screaming at him to run, telling him to go back to his life and let his teeth crack in a normal way. Then my jaw pulsed and purple leaked down my chin. The sink in my room gurgled softly, as if anticipating a meal. I opened my mouth to speak. What came out wasn't a warning. It was a wet, violet cough. The man in the foyer looked up, seeing me silhouetted on the stairs, and his eyes widened with recognition he couldn't explain. Like he'd seen me before in a place he didn't remember. His hand rose to his own jaw, reflexive. He swallowed. The woman turned her head slightly and smiled up at me, just faint, not cruel, proud. The house was teaching me my role. I backed away from the banister and returned to my room. I leaned over the sink and let the purple go. The drain drank it greedily. Deep in the walls, the pipes pulsed. Far below, in the cistern, something swallowed. I watched my reflection in the mirror as the last of the fluid slid from my lips, and I understood the final trick of the mansion. It doesn't trap you with locks. It doesn't chain your ankles. It doesn't even threaten you. It takes the part of you that hurts and turns it into food, and then it rewards you with relief so clean and sharp, you start to crave emptiness the way you once craved rest. That's why people go. Not because they want the house, because they want the quiet, because they're tired of carrying pressure in their bones, because somewhere along the way, they start to believe that being hollow is the same as being healed. If you're listening to this and your jaw aches at night, if you wake with a metallic taste, if your teeth feel like they're under pressure from the inside, don't tell yourself you're fine. Don't grind them down and laugh it off. And if someone ever gives you a blank card with an address and tells you there's a place that can take it away, don't go after dusk. Don't go at all, because the mansion is hungry. And once it tastes what you've been holding, it will never forget the shape of your mouth. It will open for you. It will welcome you like it's known you your whole life. And the moment you step over the threshold, you won't be entering a house. You'll be entering a mouth. And the house will teach you, gently, patiently, one tooth at a time, how to dissolve, to